One night in the forest, there was a little girl and a group of knights chasing her away. They know where she's headed, so one knight tells their leader that they shouldn't enter the forest after her. The leader is confused and asks why. The knight explains that the lair of the Beast Lord is deep in that forest, and rumors say he hates humans and viciously attacks anyone near his lair. The leader hesitates, saying such stories are hard to believe. A group of knights then arrives, telling the leader that a villager saw the evil woman. They rush off in the other direction, hoping to find her, while the girl hides behind a tree. After the knights leave, the girl enters the forest, thinking to herself, "I'm sorry, Natalia, for leaving without explaining, but as long as I'm alive, I'm sure." Suddenly, she can't finish her thought, collapses to the ground, and notices a house 100 meters away before fainting. The next morning, a strange-looking young man is sitting in front of his house, reading a newspaper. He reads about an evil woman from a neighboring country and wonders, has she really escaped the country? Suddenly, he feels something strange coming from the forest, so he heads there to see what's going on. He finds a group of animals gathered around something and approaches to find the girl who fainted the night before. He picks her up to take her home, noticing how light she is. He thinks she must have escaped from her kidnappers. Meanwhile, one of the knights chasing her watches from behind a tree. The boy notices the knight and, with lightning speed, teleports behind him. As soon as the knight hears the boy's voice, he attacks with his sword, but the boy dodges swiftly. The boy recognizes the knight's uniform as belonging to the royal family's personal guard and asks, "What are you doing here?" At that moment, more knights appear, and their leader says, "Hand over the woman now. She's a dangerous criminal who shamed our nation." The boy looks at the girl and asks, "Really?" The leader promises, "You won't be harmed if you hand her over without resistance. But if you obstruct us, we won't forgive you." The boy replies, "Got it, got it. In that case, I refuse." The knight draws his sword and attacks, but the boy dodges again, saying, "If I must choose between you and this poor girl, I'll definitely side with her. You bunch of scum." The leader tells the knights that the boy can't use his hands, so they must take the chance and defeat him quickly. Suddenly, the boy uses ice magic, freezing their feet instantly. All the knights fall to the ground, unable to move. At that moment, the boy reveals himself to the leader, who's shocked to see the boy's half-white, half-black hair and asks, "Are you the Beast Lord who lives in this forest?" The knights are all stunned and nervous, but the boy says, "No, you're wrong. I'm the great Beast Lord," and uses a magical skill to defeat them all in the blink of an eye. Then he controls them with magic and demands the leader tell him everything. The leader says they were searching for the girl, but suddenly lost track of her and assumed a monster attacked her. After that, they decided to return to report the situation. It's revealed that the Beast Lord planted this scenario in their minds. He orders them to leave immediately, and they return to their country. The Beast Lord thinks to himself that their minds will soon return to normal, but they won't remember anything that happened. He takes the girl to his house, letting her rest and regain her strength. He wonders, is this the dangerous criminal everyone's looking for? I can't believe it. He looks at the newspaper again and sees that her crime was exposing a plot in the Kingdom of News. At that moment, the girl wakes up. The Beast Lord offers her medicine, but she's suspicious and asks, "Who are you?" He doesn't answer and just tells her to drink it. She agrees and drinks the medicine. He asks her what happened to make her collapse. She explains that she got lost in the forest and saw a distant castle, so she tried to reach it. He tells her, "Don't worry, you're in that castle now." Then he reveals, "You're Lady Charlotte Evans, the second Prince of New's fiancée." She nervously replies, "No, that's not me." He reassures her, "Don't be nervous. I can tell when people are lying, and you're not lying, Charlotte." Charlotte starts crying, and the Beast Lord tries to comfort her, asking what happened. She tells him, "You're the first person to believe me." After some rest, he asks if she feels better. She says yes, and he asks why she was exiled. She explains the situation, and we flash back to a royal celebration where someone announces they have a declaration before the festivities begin. They call Charlotte, and everyone is confused, wondering who she is. Someone in the crowd says she's a noblewoman engaged to Prince Cecil for years. There are many rumors about Charlotte's background. At that moment, the prince accuses her of evil deeds, listing many false accusations, but unfortunately, no one doubts his words. The prince orders her arrest for treason, and Charlotte is shocked. He also cancels their engagement and orders the guards to take her to prison. Charlotte pleads with the prince to believe her, saying she did nothing wrong, but it seems the prince just wants to get rid of her. He smiles as the guards take her away. Charlotte is imprisoned, and we return to the present. The Beast Lord thinks, it seems this prince framed her. He either didn't want to marry Charlotte or had someone else in mind. Charlotte thanks him for believing her and helping her, but says she doesn't want to trouble him any longer and must escape before someone finds her. The Beast Lord interrupts, asking, "Are you good at cleaning? As you can see, I'm terrible at it. Everything's a mess. How about working looking for me? Charlotte, nervous, replies, I can clean like any normal person. He says, perfect answer. I'll give you a job here in my castle. From now on, you'll be my live-in maid. You'll manage the household and I'll pay you. Plus, you'll get 3 meals a day and snacks. There's an extra room, so your stay won't be an issue. Charlotte says, did you hear me? I'm a wanted criminal. The Beast Lord pauses and replies, right? I live isolated deep in the forest, so I don't have to deal with people. He then reveals that he was betrayed in the past by someone close to him, just like her. She feels sympathy and says, you too? That's so sad. At that moment, he introduces himself as Ellen. 3 years ago, he joined a group to seek adventure, but they used him to break a temple seal to steal the treasure they sought. Then they abandoned him in front of a large number of monsters because they only wanted to exploit him. Charlotte, nearly in tears, tells him, that's horrible, being betrayed by your friends. Ellen is surprised by her reaction and wonders why she's so affected and so innocent. She believed his story without any doubt. Ellen becomes more enthusiastic, telling her that at that time, there was no one to help him, so he can't leave her alone. He thinks they have much in common. Charlotte appreciates his concern, but insists she'll only bring him trouble and can't accept his offer. Ellen replies, okay, I understand. Here's my final offer. He snaps his fingers and tells her, I've placed a deadly curse on myself. It won't be lifted until you agree to work for me. If you don't accept within 3 minutes, my heart will stop beating. Charlotte gets very nervous, and Alan tells her, it's better if you make your decision quickly, or else an innocent citizen will die because of you. This pushes Charlotte to finally agree to his offer. Later, we find Charlotte starting to work around the house and finishing surprisingly fast. Alan notices and is very impressed by her amazing work, saying, it's hard to believe you're from a noble family, let alone a duke's household. Charlotte replies, explaining that she used to help a lot with household chores. Alan thinks to himself, I could tell that from how rough her hands were when I saved her. The idea that she's a noble lady is just a title. She's more like a servant. Charlotte then says, all I did was polish the floor. You arranged most of the stuff using magic. Alan responds, yeah, because all that stuff was useless, so I burned it. Charlotte adds, you also helped clean the floor, and then asks, am I really necessary here? Alan reassures her, of course. Did you see the mess the mansion was in? I'm terrible at cleaning. If I were alone, I wouldn't have bothered cleaning at all. Charlotte smiles and tells him, you shouldn't be proud of that. He simply responds, well, it's the truth. She then asks, okay, what do you want me to do now? He tells her, nothing for now. Just do whatever you want until dinner. Surprised, Charlotte asks, aren't you afraid I might steal something? He replies, don't worry about that. I went shopping in town yesterday and bought a bunch of stuff, so there's no money left in the house anyway. She apologizes. I'm sorry you had to buy things because of yesterday. Alan assures her, don't worry, that's what's called an initial investment. So now, feel free to read the books in the library or do some gardening outside, whatever you like. At that moment, Alan heads into the library with Charlotte following behind, and she's amazed at the sheer number of books in the place. Alan tells her, I've got some work to finish, so don't bother me. Charlotte's excitement about the library fades, afraid of disturbing him, so she quietly leaves. Alan thinks to himself, I can't see someone needing help and not help them, but I don't want her to feel indebted to me. Over time, she'll get tired of me and leave, because I'm not good with people. He then corrects some students' papers from the Magic Academy, mentioning that the students call him the Red Pen Monster. Time passes, and without realizing it, night falls. Alan gets up to turn on the lights, and as he turns around, he's shocked to find Charlotte sitting on the floor behind him. He asks her, what are you doing? She responds, didn't you tell me to do whatever I wanted? I'm fixing a crack in the wooden floor. Alan is even more shocked and asks, who does that in their free time? He then asks Charlotte, do you have any hobbies, Charlotte? She replies, no, I don't have any specific hobbies. Alan asks, so what did you do in your free time back at home? She tells him, if I wasn't training for bridal duties, I would clean and organize clothes. I never had free time before. Alan is stunned and thinks to himself, that's so sad, but why is she smiling while saying it? What did you like about your bridal training or anything else? Charlotte responds, I didn't enjoy it at all. I was always scolded for making mistakes. Alan tells her, it's okay, just tell me about a happy memory you have. She tells him that 2 months ago, her little sister Natalia gave her a piece of fruit. It was a bit spoiled, but I've never had snacks before, so I was really happy. At that moment, Alan notices how scary his expression has become. He is deeply moved by her story and thinks, even the Monster King had happy times at the academy. He feels really bad for Charlotte. Alan decides at that moment to teach Charlotte how to enjoy herself like a child. He goes out shopping and comes back with loads of things, which surprises Charlotte. She asks, what's all this? Didn't you say you had no more money? Alan reassures her, don't worry, I sold my magic tools for a lot of money. Remember, I told you I'd teach you how to have fun like a child. She replies, yes, but do you mean mischievous fun? fun, like children? He clarifies, I mean joy and enjoyment. That's what I'm talking about. He then pulls out loads of sweets, drinks, chocolates, and all sorts of treats. Charlotte is amazed, but she initially refuses to try them because she has never eaten such things before, only ever seeing them at large banquets. Alan convinces her to try them, and she cries tears of joy. He reassures her, as long as I'm with you, I'll always make sure you're happy. That night, Alan is filled with excitement at the thought of having Charlotte experience all the fun things she missed, whether food or anything else. The next morning, Alan wakes up at his desk, realizing he had fallen asleep there. He can't remember when he dozed off, but he's at least come up with some exciting ideas. He's made a small notebook filled with playful pranks he thought of all night, thinking Charlotte would be thrilled. But then, he suddenly realizes the plans would only make him happy, not Charlotte, so he throws the notebook away and decides he needs to think better. At that moment, Charlotte enters the library, greeting him. Alan tells her he fell asleep at the desk, and she says, "You stayed up all night working? I saw you yawning earlier. By the way, staying up too late isn't good for your health." Alan replies, "Alright, I'll sleep now. You go have breakfast without me." Charlotte says, "Okay, I'll wake you up for lunch." Alan thanks her. Then he asks, "What's that in your hand?" She replies, "It's a broom. I'm going to clean the mansion's entrance." Alan tells her, "It's great that you're doing that, but you've already cleaned all the places I asked you to. Why are you cleaning this part? I didn't ask you to." Charlotte explains, "Since I owe you, I thought I'd be useful." Alan thinks to himself, she's really diligent in her work. He tells her, "Okay, but don't push yourself too hard this morning." Charlotte responds, "It's no problem. I'm used to this routine." Alan, surprised, asks, "Did you clean the Duke's mansion every day when you were there?" Charlotte smiles and doesn't reply, leaving Alan to think they must have had tons of servants. If they made her clean too, it must have been to torment her. It seems they treated her even worse than the servants. And now she's exiled from the country for a crime she didn't commit. That's so unfair. Feeling angry on her behalf, it shows on Alan's face. Charlotte, noticing this, becomes nervous and wishes him a good rest before leaving. After she goes, Alan thinks to himself, she never speaks ill of anyone, not even her family or her ex-fiancé, the foolish prince who framed her. If it were me, I would have crushed them all. He continues pondering Charlotte's thoughts and feelings about her family and everything they've done to her. Suddenly, he hears a noise outside and rushes out. He's startled to see a cat girl standing with Charlotte. Charlotte is surprised at how startled Alan looks and says, "This is the new maid I hired recently." The cat girl pushes Alan aside and cheerfully greets Charlotte, saying, "Our motto is speed, safety, and cuteness," leaving Charlotte confused. The cat girl introduces herself as Myasha, a courier working for Satiro's shipping company. Alan explains she's the one who delivers the mail, but Charlotte remains nervous and unsure of what's happening. Still, she greets Myasha and says, "I didn't know you were rich enough to hire a maid." Monster King. Charlotte is surprised when she learns that Alan is the Lord of Beasts, and he confirms, saying, "Yes, that's my title." Myasha, intrigued by Charlotte's appearance, comments that Charlotte looks familiar since she appeared in the newspapers. This makes Charlotte nervous, and Alan thinks to himself that her reaction is almost like she's admitting to something. Alan considers using his magic on Myasha, but she quickly reassures him that there's nothing to worry about, as the Satiris shipping company is only involved in delivering customers' goods. Alan thanks her for not taking any action, but Myasha pretends not to understand what he's talking about. She continues, explaining that the kingdom of Nizer is outside of their service range, so they have no connection to it. Alan asks what would happen if the kingdom was within their range. Myasha's expression changes, and she says she doesn't know. This reveals to Alan that things could have been much worse under those circumstances. They then enter the house, where Myasha hands Alan a box containing potions. Alan gives them to a magic shop in town and asks Myasha to deliver them carefully without breaking any vials. Myasha assures him that nothing will break and mentions that his potions are in high demand due to their superior quality. She then asks why Alan doesn't live in the city, telling him he could make money faster and more easily there. However, Alan dislikes the city due to the large number of people, which makes him uncomfortable. Myasha is surprised that he still holds on to that habit and tells him he's still young and shouldn't distance himself from people forever. This annoys Alan, and he tells her that his personal choices are none of her concern. Myasha responds that in the city, people call him the Lord of Demons because of his scary face. Alan is surprised but thinks it's only natural for someone like him, a powerful sorcerer with a menacing appearance, to be feared. He recalls that in the past, children would come to his area as a test of courage, thinking the lair of the Demon King was nearby. He then asks Myasha if her company handles mail orders as well. Myasha confirms, telling him she can deliver anything he wants. She gives him a catalog, and Alan spends some time reading through it before handing it to Charlotte, telling her to choose anything she needs since he doesn't know what women might require. Charlotte is overjoyed by this gesture. Charlotte Charlotte thanks him deeply, promising to repay his kindness someday, as he has not only cared for her, but also provided delicious food the day before. Alan brushes off her gratitude, telling her to choose freely, or else he'll buy everything in the catalog. Eventually, Charlotte agrees and selects what she wants. Mayacha laughs at the situation and tells Charlotte she's in a tough spot with Alan. She jokes that if Charlotte wants to stop the Demon King's tyranny, she should give him a punch. Mayacha playfully punches Alan like a punching bag, saying it's the best way to relieve tension and let out stress. Suddenly, Alan gets an idea and laughs his signature evil laugh. He decides the next thing he will teach Charlotte. The next day, Mayacha returns to the house and hands Charlotte the items she ordered. Alan notices that Mayacha has grown attached to Charlotte. Charlotte tells Alan that her package has arrived. When they look at it, they see a massive box. Alan opens it slightly and remarks on its high quality. Mayacha asks him what he plans to do with the package, and Alan explains that it's for Charlotte, not him. Charlotte, startled, asks what the package contains. Alan then opens the box to reveal a large punching bag. Charlotte asks what she's supposed to do with a punching bag, assuming it's for physical training, but Alan tells her she's mistaken. He reveals that it's meant for her to release her frustration. He even places a picture of her fiancé on the bag and gives her gloves, telling her to punch the bag with all her strength. Though initially hesitant, Alan encourages her, telling her that she doesn't need to overthink things and that sometimes, while patience is important, letting out her anger is necessary to avoid crumbling under stress. Charlotte insists she's not angry, but Alan disagrees. He tells her that he spent time gathering that picture and reading in the newspapers about how they treated her so poorly. This deeply frustrated him because they took everything from her, trampled on her dignity, and exiled her. He asks her how she can possibly not be angry after all that. Despite Alan's attempts, Charlotte remains calm, thinking she owes her family for raising her. She's unsure how to hate them. Alan realizes the depth of her internal conflict and feels frustrated that his plan to help her failed. He wants her to harbor strong hatred toward them so they can later expose the princess's plot and live happily ever after. However, Alan recognizes that healing her emotional wounds will be incredibly difficult after all she has endured and how accustomed she is to repressing her feelings. Mayacha steps in, saying she doesn't like interfering in family matters but suggests they leave the situation alone for now. Alan agrees, though reluctantly, noting that waiting for things to heal naturally may not be the best solution. Alan then approaches Charlotte, asking her to hit him instead of the punching bag. Both Charlotte and Mayacha are shocked, unable to believe what they heard. Charlotte refuses, telling him that she owes him too much to ever hit him. But Alan insists, saying it's not up for debate and that she will do it. He then uses his magic to make the gloves she's wearing glow, controlling her right hand to strike him with full force, sending him flying. Charlotte rushes to check on him, panicked, but Alan explains that he used his magic to guide her hand and make her hit him. He tells her she's stronger than she realizes. Alan reassures Charlotte that he'll always be there for her, supporting her. Though this house isn't the one she grew up in, she can feel free to do anything she wants here, as she is free. Charlotte blushes a little and scolds Alan for making her hit him just to say that, but Alan brushes it off, healing his injury with magic, saying it's a minor bruise that's easy to fix. Despite his healing magic, Charlotte is still concerned and asks him not to do something like that again because she can't bear to see him hurt. Alan promises her that he won't. Later, Alan apologizes to Mayacha for the punching bag delivery, explaining that it seems unnecessary now. Mayacha reassures him that there's no need to apologize and jokes that Alan and Charlotte will probably order many more things in the future, like a double bed, rings, and baby supplies. Alan and Charlotte exchange puzzled glances, having no idea what Mayacha meant, as they don't need those kinds of items. Meanwhile, a figure lurking in the surrounding forest mutters to himself that he's now alone and won't let them escape this time. We see Alan and Charlotte sitting together. Alan asks Charlotte if she wants tea or coffee, but she says she'll drink whatever he drinks. Alan informs her that he's going to drink a repulsive special brew and asks if she'd like to try it. Charlotte silently opts for the tea. Alan then encourages her to speak more honestly in the future, but Charlotte explains she was just choosing a drink, not making an important decision. She reveals that running away from home was the first real decision she ever made on her own. Alan reassures her, saying she's improving by making her own choices and urges her to share anything else she'd like to experience. Suddenly, a girl opens the window and enters the house, telling Alan that she found him. Alan asks how she located him, and she explains it was easy by narrowing down the search area thanks to the pollen he left on his letters. She also asked people in the area if they knew of any odd wizards around. Charlotte asks Alan who the girl is, but the girl quickly appears beside her, saying she should be asking that question. She eventually introduces herself as a trainee magic engineer named Iruka Crowford, but says we can call her Iruka. She also mentions she's Alan's younger sister. Charlotte is surprised to learn that Alan has a younger sister, but he clarifies that she's not a blood relative, as he was adopted by the Crowford family after losing his father at a young age. Charlotte apologizes for getting involved in their family matters, but Alan assures her it's not a problem and informs her that he and Iruka are the same age. Iruka then wonders who Charlotte is and jokingly assumes she's Alan's girlfriend. Both Alan and Charlotte quickly deny it, and Alan tells Iruka that Charlotte would surely be disgusted by the thought of being with a loner, stubborn wizard like him. Iruka believes him, but she's still curious about Charlotte's identity. Alan casually reveals that Charlotte's name, her escape from a neighboring country, and says it's pointless to hide the truth since Iruka will find out eventually. He explains the entire story to her, and Iruka calls him foolish for not teaching Charlotte how to handle herself better, instead of simply feeding her and letting her beat him up. She then approaches Charlotte and sympathizes, offering to help her with anything she might need. Alan then asks Iruka why she came, and she replies that her original mission was to bring him back home, but now she's also interested in helping Charlotte and teaching her a few girly tricks. Alan teases Iruka, claiming he could teach Charlotte better than anyone else. Iruka retorts that there are certain things only a girl can teach, and they start bickering while Charlotte, stuck in the middle, grows anxious. They decide to settle things with a competition to see who can take better care of Charlotte. Later, they head into the city. Alan casts a simple disguise spell on Charlotte to change her appearance, since she's wanted. He remarks that the spell is perfect but should be undone when they return home. Iruka, however, feels that the black hair suits Charlotte better. Alan admits he prefers her blonde hair, believing it suits her more. Charlotte blushes at this, but Alan remains oblivious to the impact of his words. Iruka then decides to take Charlotte shopping for proper clothes. At the clothing store, Iruka and Charlotte browse while Alan reminisces about his time with the Crowford family. He recalls Iruka frequently challenging him to chess, always losing but never giving up, thinking that might have been her way of getting closer to him. Iruka calls Alan over to check out Charlotte's new outfit. Seeing how beautiful she looks, Alan's heart skips a beat, and he momentarily pauses to calm himself. Charlotte notices and asks if he's okay, while Iruka instructs her to try on the second outfit. When Charlotte goes to the changing room, Iruka takes the opportunity to talk to Alan, asking about his interest in the current state of the Kingdom of Neraz, especially regarding Charlotte's situation. Alan expresses concern but reassures her that they don't need to act now. Iruka offers to investigate the matter through her family's connections, suggesting even gaining access to the prince's chambers. Alan, however, says it's not necessary, though he's intrigued by the prince and wonders how Charlotte managed her life there. Alan confesses that he can't just stand by without doing anything, and that he might have invaded the country regardless of Charlotte's opinion on the matter. Iruka remarks that he's never cared for others like this before. Just then, Charlotte steps out of the changing room, struggling with a back clasp. She asks Iruka for help, who seems startled by something but remains composed. Once Charlotte is fully dressed, Iruka asks Alan to take a closer look at the back clasp. Upon seeing the scars on Charlotte's back, Alan is shocked but says nothing to her directly. Instead, he places his hand on her back and magically heals the scars, telling her that the clasp was just misaligned and he fixed it. Internally, he reflects on how simple the spell was, realizing that Charlotte hadn't received any proper care while at the palace. Though the scars were minor, he senses something darker behind them and becomes furious at the treatment she endured. He suddenly turns to Iruka and declares that they should wipe out everyone responsible, asking for her help. He tells Charlotte they're just going to deal with some pests. They continue walking through the city, and Alan suggests buying various things for Charlotte, though his taste is notably bad. Despite this, they buy a lot, and Charlotte grows uncomfortable with the amount of stuff, feeling it's excessive. Alan assures her that these expenses are necessary for her happiness. Charlotte blushes, and Alan, still unaware of the situation, is criticized by Iruka for his poor taste. Most of the things they bought were chosen by Iruka, further igniting the sibling rivalry. The two bicker again, but Charlotte steps in and calms them down, saying fighting is bad. They both reluctantly promise not to argue anymore. As they continue shopping, they encounter a man in a wheelchair, which seems to be of fine craftsmanship and magic. Iruka approaches him, admiring the high-quality build of his wheelchair, and learns that he crafted it himself. Alan says that Iruka is obsessed with equipment and continues on the road with Charlotte without her. Alan goes to a jewelry store and buys something for Charlotte the same color as her eyes. He gives the seller more money than the cost of the jewelry, explaining that it's for the exquisite craftsmanship. Charlotte is overjoyed when she wears the jewelry, and Alan feels strangely happy but also senses a curse of death upon him. Suddenly, two people bump into Charlotte, scolding her to watch where she's going. Alan gets angry and prepares to use his magic, but stops when he remembers his promise to Charlotte that he wouldn't fight anyone. He apologizes to the two on behalf of Charlotte, but they insist they want her for just tonight. One One of them approaches, but Alan grabs his hand, breaks his fingers, and throws him to the ground. The second attacker, seeing his friend on the ground, draws a magical sword infused with fire and attacks Alan. Alan easily blocks the attack, freezes the sword, and strikes back. The crowd cheers for Alan, but he remembers his promise to Charlotte and apologizes to her for breaking it. She reassures him that she knows he acted that way for her and tells him she'll never fear him because of it. Alan is happy with the outcome, while Iruka, watching from afar, acknowledges to herself that she's lost the competition this time. Suddenly, a giant Iron Man approaches Alan and says he heard his men got into a fight with him. Alan approaches the Iron Man and asks if he's Megath. The man asks why he cares about the name, making Alan happy to confirm that it's Megath. He says he feels nostalgic since it's been about 7 years. But Megath gets angry, claiming he doesn't remember meeting a human like him before and tries to strike Alan. Alan dodges the attacks and reminds Megath that his memory is weak, introducing himself as Alan Crawford from Athena's Academy of Magic. Megath is shocked and apologizes, realizing Alan is the Demon Lord. He asks for forgiveness for his rudeness. Megath's men are confused and ask why he doesn't attack Alan since he could defeat him easily. Megath angrily hits them in response. Iruka tells Charlotte that their father is the head of the biggest magic academy in the country, and that her brother graduated from the academy at only 12 years old, becoming the first to do so and quickly becoming a teacher afterward. Alan tells Megath to raise his head as he hasn't caused any trouble, but then he smiles slyly and hints that the person who wanted to harm him is someone very dear to him. Iruka and Mayasha notice that Alan looks depressed and ask him what's wrong. Iruka suspects something happened between him and Charlotte, and Alan is shocked she figured it out. They ask if he fought with Charlotte, but he tells them it's something else. We flash back to when Alan offered to pay Charlotte for her work, as she had been working for him for over a month. But Charlotte didn't want the money, saying she only cleaned and didn't feel she was helpful to him at all. Alan reassured her that she took care of the house and garden, and that his home had been spotless since she arrived. He insisted that she accept the payment. When she finally agreed, he told her she could save the money but advised her to spend it. He then asked if there was anything she wanted to buy. After thinking, Charlotte told him she wanted to visit the city by herself. Back in the present, Alan reflects on this and says sending her to the city alone is like throwing a piece of meat into a den of monsters. He's nervous and unsure of what to do. Iruka is surprised by his reaction, as she expected Charlotte would be worried about causing trouble for Alan if people discovered her true identity. Alan explains that she changed her mind quickly, but he assured her everything would be fine and easy if they used his magic. He only did it because he didn't want her to be upset. Alan is still worried, but Iruka and Mayasha tell him there's a simple solution to his problem. Next, we see Charlotte happily arriving in the city alone for the first time. Alan, Iruka, and Mayasha are watching her from afar, ensuring she doesn't notice them. Alan explains that Charlotte wanted to come to the city for something, but she didn't tell him what it was and said it was a secret. Even though the secrecy bothered him, Alan was happy because it showed that Charlotte had her own personal desires and independence. They continue to watch her, and Charlotte appears to be struggling with the map. Mayasha warns Alan that if Charlotte keeps going straight, she'll end up in the dangerous Murd district controlled by the Serpent Fong gang, whose leader, Gro, is a master snake tamer. Iruka asks Alan what they should do, and after thinking, Alan says this is Charlotte's first adventure, so they shouldn't dampen her enthusiasm. Suddenly, Alan remembers something he forgot to do and leaps onto the rooftops, leaving the situation to the others. Mayasha and Iruka continue watching Charlotte, noticing that she has entered the dangerous Murd district without realizing it. Suddenly, Gro and his gang appear in front of her. But instead of attacking, everyone welcomes Charlotte and calls her Miss Charlotte, thanking her for coming all this way to visit them. Mayasha and Iruka are confused by what's happening. Then Alan appears and reveals that he arrived before them, fought the gang, and ordered them to treat Charlotte kindly. Charlotte notices that everyone is injured and offers them healing potions, telling them to use as much as they need. The gang members start crying because of her kindness and promise to change their ways and live honest lives, while Charlotte remains completely confused. Gro then asks Charlotte about her connection to the Great Demon Lord. Charlotte is surprised that they know him, and one of the gang members begins to explain what Alan did, but Alan threatens him from afar. Charlotte tells them that her relationship with Alan is simply that he's her master, as she's been living in his house. Alan overhears this and is heartbroken, feeling hurt and collapsing to the ground. The gang tells Charlotte that being with the Demon Lord is a crime. Alan, listening, acknowledges their right. After all, he's a feared villain, while Charlotte is a kind-hearted girl loved by everyone. Charlotte turns to Alan, saying she doesn't understand why they're saying that, as Alan is a noble man and there must be some misunderstanding. Charlotte finishes talking to them, says goodbye, and leaves. Mayasha mentions that she'll continue on her path because there are still many gangs, but Alan reassures her her that it's an easy task to handle and that he will quickly take control of the entire area. And indeed, he does just that, taking over all the gangs in the city. Later, he speaks with Mayasha, and she tells him that Charlotte probably doesn't want to see what he's planning to do. In this case, Mayasha will continue monitoring Charlotte alone, and Alan will wait. Alan sits with Iroka, and it's clear he's nervous. Mayasha appears and informs him that Charlotte has finished shopping. Alan asks if she'll be okay without watching over her, and Mayasha tells him that Charlotte has met one of her acquaintances, so she's with them now and will probably return soon. Alan moves closer and asks Mayasha what exactly Charlotte bought, but Mayasha tells him she didn't see what she purchased. At that moment, Charlotte shows up with the owner of the jewelry store she had bought from before. Charlotte greets them and praises Alan, saying he's incredible. While they were walking, they encountered many civilians, all happy because the gangs had stopped their activities thanks to Alan. Though Alan intended to protect Charlotte, he ended up helping others unintentionally. Afterward, the store owner leaves, and Alan asks Charlotte how her shopping went. Excited, Charlotte tells him it was amazing. She pulls out 2 gifts, one for Iroka and the other for Mayasha. Both are thrilled with their presents. However, Alan feels differently and seems nervous. He asks Charlotte if she got him a gift. Charlotte explains that she searched for many things that might interest him but couldn't find anything. Alan tells her that if she had gotten him anything, even something as small as a postage stamp, he would have been happy. Charlotte responds that she could fix his worn-out coat and asks him to chat with her while she repairs it. At this moment, Alan feels something strange growing in his heart. We see Alan and Charlotte heading on a trip to the Yunoha region, located northeast, about 3 hours by car. Charlotte is incredibly excited about the trip. However, from afar, we see some suspicious people watching them. The scene flashes back to their home, where Charlotte thanks Alan for the book he gave her because it allowed her to learn much about the country. She also tells him she read in the book about the Grand Academy where Alan and Iroka studied. Alan tells her that if she gathered all the people there, the total would be close to the population of a small island. He then asks if there are any other places she'd like to visit. Charlotte flips through the book and finds a place she wants to go but is too shy to tell Alan. He reassures her that the place she's chosen will be their next destination tomorrow. He asks if she enjoys long trips since women like her often bring many things with them. Charlotte assures him that it's not like that and explains that she's only indebted to him, which is why she doesn't want to burden him with a long journey. She also admits she enjoys spending time with him at the mansion more than anything else. Alan knows she's not lying. Alan doesn't want to spoil Charlotte. He just wants her to have joyful experiences she hasn't had before, and now there's no turning back. He asks if she'd be happy if he took her on a trip, saying it would be a fun adventure where they could enjoy local food, visit tourist spots, and relax in a hot spring. Alan then asks Charlotte where exactly she'd like to go, promising to make her wish come true, but Charlotte still feels too shy to tell him. Alan jokes that he might have to put a curse on his heart again to get her to agree, but Charlotte insists he shouldn't do that again. Mayasha enters the room, greeting them, and informs them that she has a package for their 2-day trip to Yunoha. Returning to the present, Alan assures Charlotte that this is a rural area, so her wanted poster is unlikely to have reached here. He tells her to relax and take it easy. Charlotte then asks if it's really okay for her to come with him and why he didn't bring Iroka instead. Alan explains that Iroka will be busy for 2 days, so there's no problem. From a distance, we see that the people watching the car are actually Iroka and Mayasha. Iroka isn't busy at all. We find out that they used the money sent by the neighborhood association as a thank you to buy tickets for this trip. They're thrilled to watch Alan and Charlotte grow closer during the journey. Suddenly, Alan feels a strange shiver, sensing someone is watching him, but he says nothing to Charlotte, only mentioning that they are close to the inn where they'll be staying. When Charlotte sees the inn, she recognizes it from her book and shows it to Alan, explaining that it's a famous 3-star hotel. Alan asks if she planned this hotel visit all along. Charlotte gets flustered and admits she had her eye on the hotel, but denies that it was part of a larger plan. Alan suspects she's lying and starts deducing information about the hotel, noting that it's isolated and far away. Charlotte grabs the book from him and pleads with him to stop guessing, saying it's embarrassing for her. Alan decides to stop prying but wants to reassure her. He tells her it's good that she's doing things she couldn't do in her childhood. He suddenly moves closer and tells her that he won't laugh at her or make fun of her for wanting to visit this place. He reassures her that she can tell him where she wants to go, and he'll accompany her. They arrive at the resort and are greeted by one of the staff members, who warmly welcomes them. Alan asks if the hot spring is available, and the staff member tells them it's not too crowded. Alan decides they should head to the hot spring first before checking into their rooms, and Charlotte agrees with his decision. The staff member asks if they're a couple, which embarrasses both Alan and Charlotte. They quickly deny it and ask why she assumed that. The staff member explains that their tickets are for couples. couples. Alan realizes that Mayasha tricked him. The staff member offers them a welcome drink, served in a large glass meant for 2 people to share, but Alan, ever the Sigma male, gulps it down in one go. Later that night, the worker thanks Alan for what he did, explaining that he helped them sell triple the amount of ice cream they usually do. Alan humbly replies that all he did was freeze the ice cream and that it was nothing special. The worker asks if Alan has any plans for the next day, offering to tell him about some great spots to visit. She mentions places like diving sites and a hill where they can observe fener creatures, though she warns it might be in vain since it's their breeding season, making it rare to see them. She also suggests visiting the zoo. Charlotte gets very excited upon hearing about the zoo, but quickly returns to her usual demeanor. Alan notices and chuckles slyly. They head to their room and are happy to find it spacious with a view of the sea. The next morning, Charlotte tells Alan that she dreamed of her mother, just as she had wanted. Alan is happy for her and internally tells Charlotte's mother not to worry because he will protect her daughter. The scene shifts to a strange, talking beaver-like creature, wondering if Alan can really protect Charlotte. Alan and Charlotte visit the magical zoo, which is filled with giant and diverse creatures. Charlotte asks if Alan minds accompanying her since she doesn't want him following her around all the time. Alan reassures her that it's not a problem, although he hadn't expected her to enjoy magical creatures so much. Alan learns that Charlotte has always wanted to visit the petting zoo. She tells him that she had read a lot about it when she was younger and had always wanted to go there. Alan gets excited and tells her they'll have fun like little kids, encouraging her to ask for anything she wants. However, Charlotte doesn't want to burden him with requests, so Alan places a curse on his heart again to get her to speak up. Eventually, Charlotte asks for some accessories, and despite being a little embarrassed, Alan buys her what she wants. Meanwhile, the strange beaver creature is surrounded by other animals and declares that it's finally time for them to fight. Alan and Charlotte enter the petting zoo, and Alan notices a capybara, which is the same creature they saw earlier. He knows a bit about them, including that they're fierce magical beasts capable of destroying mountains if they're hungry. A staff member approaches Alan and tells him not to worry because the creatures are resting deep in the forest. Alan thanks her, but when he turns to Charlotte, he sees that she's crying. She explains that the animals are just so fluffy and cute that she can't handle it. They enter to play with the animals, and Alan wants to make Charlotte even happier, so he uses his ability to communicate with the magical creatures, asking them to play with Charlotte in exchange for lots of food. The creatures agree, enticed by the offer. However, when Alan looks at Charlotte, he's surprised to see that all the animals are already gathered around her without her doing anything. After they spend some time together, Charlotte tells Alan that she was incredibly happy, and all the animals gaze at her lovingly from behind the fence. When Alan translates their words, he realizes the animals are threatening him not to get too close to Charlotte. Alan contemplates the situation and tells Charlotte that there are many kinds of magic and special skills in this world, some requiring intellectual abilities. He gives an example, explaining that his skill allows him to use nonverbal spells, which is a high-level skill. He then suggests that Charlotte might have the ability to tame magical creatures. He tells her that this means she can communicate with and even control magical creatures, and that she managed to charm all the animals without any training. Charlotte asks if she really has that power, and Alan confirms that she does, and at a high level. He adds that even he can barely communicate with low-level magical creatures. Suddenly, the zoo worker interrupts and asks if they are tamers, requesting their help because they don't know what to do. They are led to another area where they meet an old man. Upon seeing Alan, the old man recognizes him as a member of the Crawford family. He reminds Alan that they met at a public lecture at the Magic Academy and reveals that he is the director of the magical zoo. He asks for Alan's help. Alan agrees and asks what the problem is. The old man explains that it will be easier to see for himself. The old man opens a door, and they are shocked to find a fener in front of them. It's clear that the creature is severely injured, and they assume it must have been separated from its parents and wounded by a poacher. Alan thinks to himself that these creatures are endangered, and anyone who harms them should be imprisoned. However, the reason for hunting them is that their fur and bones are valuable for crafting magical materials. The director explains that this is the first time they've caught a fener, and none of them have been able to communicate with it, making it difficult to get close enough to use healing spells. Alan approaches the creature and tries to communicate, but the fener refuses to listen. The director tells Alan that they've tried many times to communicate, but failed each time, and no tamer skilled enough has been able to handle the situation. And suddenly, the girl enters and informs them that Fenrir's mother is approaching them now. When Alan thinks about it, he realizes that Fenrir must be at least 100 years old, and destroying a city like this would be incredibly easy for her. At that moment, Alan decides he will go and stop the mother himself before she destroys the city. Everyone around him is surprised by his decision, but he reassures them, saying it's his specialty. busy. He also asks them to keep the garden guests on standby. Later, he contacts Charlotte and asks her to accompany them, but she tells him she can't just stand around doing nothing. She offers to help by using her taming skills and says if she senses any danger, she will leave the area. She then asks to speak with the pup. Alan agrees with her plan and tells her to get the pup to accept treatment. Afterward, he speaks to the garden manager and informs him that Charlotte has a natural talent for dealing with animals, suggesting she should communicate with Fenrir. The manager agrees, as it's a recommendation from Alan. Later, we find Alan standing on a cliff, observing the Fenrir creatures. He notes that anyone who sees these creatures is supposed to get lucky. He then creates a protective barrier around the resort to shield it from them. Rand decides to freeze the creatures for a while to buy Charlotte some time. But suddenly, a large Fenrir appears in front of him, and he realizes it's the mother. The mother begins to attack him, even swallowing him whole. But using his magic, Alan manages to escape. He tries to speak with her and communicate, but she can't hear him and attacks, sending him flying. Alan is forced to use his magic, but suddenly, the water boar speaks to him, telling him that if he uses magic, the mother and her son will never reunite. The creature introduces itself as Gajitsu, a water boar, and says its goal is to save the lady whom it has been forcing to stay with him. Alan asks how Gajitsu knows Charlotte, and Gajitsu explains that after sneaking out of the magic garden, it met Charlotte and wanted to do anything to save her, but at that time, Alan appeared and took her away. When Gajitsu learned from rumors that Charlotte was innocent, it realized it needed to protect her by eliminating Alan. Gajitsu then launches a powerful attack on Alan, accusing him of wasting time with Charlotte instead of trying to save her, calling it laziness. It declares that it will finish him off and then destroy the city of Neros. Gajitsu reveals it killed Fenrir's creatures and took their young, which is why they won't leave him alone. Alan Nebraska calculates that he's facing an army of Fenrir creatures and a water boar, and even if he uses all his power, he won't emerge from this battle unscathed. But suddenly, Charlotte appears and tells Alan she successfully communicated with the pup, who accepted the treatment. Alan is overjoyed and tells her she's become someone reliable. The pup speaks with its mother, and when Alan translates their conversation, he learns that the mother believed he was a hunter, a lie told to her by the water boar. The water boar speaks to Charlotte and urges her to leave Alan, claiming he is hurting her. However, Charlotte refuses and says Alan treats her well, and she won't abandon him. The boar then decides to take her by force and attacks Alan, but Alan easily deflects the strike, sending the boar crashing to the ground. Alan asks if the boar is okay and heals it with his magic. The boar admits that was a strong blow and asks Alan to be more honest about his feelings in the future. The episode ends with the garden worker thanking them for saving the day and informing them that their ride is ready. Before they leave, the Fenrir creatures appear to bid them farewell. Charlotte remembers something and asks Alan about the hunters who did this to the creatures. Just then, Aroka and Mayasha show up and reassure her that they've captured all the hunters. When Alan sees they feel no remorse for what they did, he casts a defensive spell on them, allowing the Fenrir creatures to attack them. We find that one of the Fenrir creatures wants to come with them. Alan asks if it will miss its mother. The garden worker tells him that the creature can return in just an hour, so it's like a family visit for it. Alan agrees to take the creature, named Lou, home and asks it to always look after Charlotte. They board the vehicle, and we find that Gajitsu is riding with them, saying he'll be Charlotte's bodyguard to make up for his past mistakes. But Charlotte doesn't seem to recognize who he is. After they return to their castle, Charlotte tells Alan she's going for a walk with Lou. Alan seems a bit bothered by something, and Gajitsu appears, saying ever since Lou arrived, Charlotte hasn't been as happy with Alan as before. Alan asks how long Lou will stay with them, but Gajitsu tells him that Lou is now part of the family and will stay as long as he wants. Alan protests, saying he didn't agree to that, but Gajitsu advises him not to act cold, suggesting that Alan loves Charlotte just as much as he does. Alan apologizes a little, saying he's just protective of her like any family member, but Gajitsu knows he's lying. Alan reflects to himself, admitting that Gajitsu is right. He does feel sad that Charlotte isn't spending as much time with him, but he's also happy that she's found her purpose as a magical creature tamer. We then flash back to the night they returned from the Yunoha region, where Charlotte tells Alan she wants to learn properly to become a magical creature tamer. Alan is thrilled that she now has a goal and promises to teach her everything, starting with the basics. From that moment, Charlotte has been studying diligently and absorbing the knowledge quickly. She reviews her lessons every day, as if preparing for a final exam. Back in the present, we see Charlotte training with Lou, successfully guiding him through obstacles with ease. Alan is delighted by her progress and calls her a genius, proud that she's his precious student. Gajitsu sarcastically asks if that's why Alan calls her precious, and Alan gets annoyed, asking Gajitsu to return to his garden. But Gajitsu cheekily replies that this is now his home. Charlotte rewards Lou for his efforts, and when Alan tries to pat him, Lou suddenly tries to bite him. Charlotte scolds Lou, telling him not to bite people, but Alan reassures her, saying it's actually a good thing. It means Lou only takes orders from her. Charlotte then wonders how Gajitsu can speak so fluently, and Alan agrees, feeling there's some trickery involved. Gajitsu explains that he taught himself to speak after spending a long time living with humans, which is how he learned their language. Alan and Charlotte are both surprised but don't dwell on it too much. Alan tells Charlotte that it's still too early for her to use the beast-talking technique, but Charlotte approaches him, pleading to try it on her own, and Alan reluctantly agrees so she won't be upset. Charlotte begins the process using the spell and asks Lou to try and say any word. And indeed, Lo begins to speak, and we find that he calls Charlotte by my mother's name. He is very happy because he finally knows he can speak the human language, but it is clear that Lo hates Alan a lot. After a while, we see Alan making a swimming pool for Lo to bathe in. Alan tells Lo to thank him, and Lo does, but in a low voice so as not to lose his charisma. We see that Gajitsu is the first one to enter the pool, and Alan yells at him, saying the pool is only for humans and Lo. Gajitsu tells him that this discriminates between them and the pigs. Then, Charlotte joins them in the pool, laughing and playing, while Alan sits outside feeling peace and happiness. He calls Charlotte, asking her to get out of the pool after a while. When she does, she sits next to him. Charlotte thanks him for everything he has done for her and tells him she is grateful, but Alan humbly replies that he hasn't done much and could even make her a water park if she wanted. Alan tells her that the previous owner of the house did not appreciate the value of the large garden, but unfortunately disappeared. He says that a strange fairy lived here 30 years ago, isolated and not liking to mingle with people, staying in the library every day as if bewitched, but one day, she disappeared. Some people said she jumped off the cliff and committed suicide because she failed many of her experiments. Others said the monster she created ate her, and fungi took over her body. Because of all these rumors, Alan was able to buy the mansion at a cheap price. But when he looks at Charlotte, he sees she is very scared, realizing he went too far. Charlotte points to the swimming pool. When we look at the pool, we see Gujitsu sleeping and covered in fungi. Alan notices that the fungus comes from the pool drain, and suddenly a woman emerges from the ground, yelling at them and accusing them of stealing her fungus. Later, they sit in the house, and the girl explains she didn't mean to harm them and realizes they didn't intend to steal her fungus. Alan asks her who she is, and the girl introduces herself as Dorothy. Alan notices she has been living here for a long time. Charlotte, frightened, asks her if she is a ghost and clings to Alan out of fear. Dorothy is puzzled by them, saying she should be the one asking who they are. Alan tells her they live in the mansion above. Dorothy is shocked, claiming the mansion is actually hers. Alan guesses she is the fairy who disappeared 30 years ago, and Dorothy is stunned to learn she has been missing for 30 years. They go to the rooftop, and Alan tells Charlotte that Dorothy is a rare breed of fairies with a high status, almost a mythical creature. Gujitsu also informs her that a fairy like Dorothy can live using magical energy and air for at least 100 years without eating or drinking. Alan is afraid of her because she is the previous owner of the mansion, which means she would have legal rights, a legal nightmare for him. Additionally, Charlotte has no other place to go, so he decides to take action. He talks to Dorothy, proposing that she sell him the mansion. Dorothy laughs cunningly, agreeing because she prefers the basement, giving them freedom to use the mansion. She tells Alan she doesn't want any money, only his help to get her out of her current predicament. They enter the mansion, and Alan asks what she needs their help with exactly. Dorothy tells them she wants to tell them a story first. She explains she was a writer of various horror, mystery, social justice, and historical stories and was very famous in that field, even considered a genius. But one day, she wanted to write a romance novel but couldn't write anything, and the deadline was approaching without her finishing it, so she decided to hide in the basement. Alan is surprised and asks if she really hid in the basement for 30 years because of something like that. Dorothy says she did because her editor was terrifying to her. Upon hearing this, Alan initially doesn't want to help her, but she approaches him, threatening him with the mansion, so he agrees to help. When Alan asks how they can help, Dorothy explains it's simple. She wants them to act like a couple in front of her. When they hear this, both scream in shock. Alan and Charlotte begin their performance. Alan calls out to Charlotte while she is on the balcony, and she jumps from it with him catching her. But Dorothy stops the scene because Alan used magic to catch her, saying it was embarrassing for him to carry Charlotte without it. Dorothy yells at them, saying they couldn't flirt naturally, so she prepared a script for them, asking about their engagement. Alan thinks to himself that he shouldn't have accepted this deal, but has to endure it to reclaim the mansion. When Dorothy finishes talking, Alan refuses the task, saying Charlotte can't flirt with someone she doesn't love. But Charlotte assures him it's not hard since she's doing it with him, so she agrees. Alan is shocked and bangs his head against the wall, bleeding a lot, saying he almost lost his life and performs some first aid. Charlotte goes to check on him, wiping the blood from his head, making Dorothy happy with the scene and writing it down in her novel. But Dorothy knows if she leaves it to them, she will die of old age waiting, so she demands they follow a specific script. Alan doesn't want to continue, but since Charlotte wants it, he agrees to do it for her and to save the mansion. Dorothy gives them the new script, saying it's simple and they just need to follow it. When they open the script, they are shocked to find out they have to act as a newlywed couple. They start acting, with Alan entering the house and greeting Charlotte. But Dorothy cuts the scene, telling him to improve his accent. They redo the scene, and Alan is stunned by Charlotte's beauty, asking if he wants to bathe, eat. He can't continue the script and faints. When he wakes up, he yells at Dorothy, asking her to improve the script and stop making Charlotte say such weird lines. They continue acting, and Alan eats with Charlotte, noticing she acts very well, like an experienced actress. They begin eating together, and Charlotte calls Alan Altan, but we will call him L. Alan is shocked and spits out his food. They stop filming, and Alan asks Dorothy about the nickname. Dorothy explains that since they are newlyweds, it's natural to use nicknames, and Charlotte's nickname is Tan, but we will call her Sure. Dorothy tells them they are done with the couple script and will move on to the school script. She needs more people to act with them, so she enlists the help of Lou and Gojitsu. They begin the scene where Alan is the school's delinquent, and his girlfriend has been kidnapped. He must fight Lou and Gojitsu to rescue her. As Alan gets into character, he hits them with great magical force, realizing he can defeat them. He then checks on Charlotte. The script requires him to touch the wall and admire it, but Gojitsu rises from the hit and asks what Charlotte means to him. Alan talks to himself, knowing he's just acting and whatever he says will be part of the act. He declares himself as Charlotte's guardian. Dorothy interrupts, asking why he went off script because he was supposed to tell Charlotte she's a part of his heart. Alan responds that he improvised, and Dorothy says it's fine. Alan continues, saying Charlotte is very kind, and if he were honest about his feelings, she might feel obliged to reciprocate. They sit with Dorothy, who tells them the next script will be about Cinderella. Alan is annoyed and wants to finish quickly, asking Charlotte for her opinion. Seeing her excitement, he gets enthusiastic too and agrees to Dorothy's request, taking his script. Dorothy explains that Alan will be a knight on a white horse, Charlotte the sad princess, and Gojitsu the wicked stepmother. Charlotte begins acting as a maid in the palace, which reminds her of her painful past. Gojitsu, as the stepmother, treats her harshly, saying he'll go to a party and expects the floor cleaned by his return. After Gojitsu leaves, Lou appears as a kind magician, telling Charlotte he'll take her to the party. He uses his wand to give her a beautiful dress, and they go to the party. At the party, Alan invites her to dance, and she happily agrees. They dance, and Charlotte is overjoyed to be close to Alban. At midnight, Dorothy stops filming. They all praise each other's acting, and Dorothy asks if they are ready for the final scene where Charlotte returns to her ordinary life, trying to forget the night with the prince, who will search for her everywhere. They continue filming, and Alan finds Charlotte, promising she'll be safe with him and has nothing to fear. Charlotte improvises, asking Alan what she means to him, expecting an honest answer this time. Suddenly, there's an explosion, and someone barges in, apologizing for the unexpected visit. He uncovers Dorothy, saying they haven't met in a long time, ties her up to prevent escape, and apologizes to Alan for the trouble, handing him the cost for the broken wall before leaving. As they leave, Charlotte asks what Alan wanted to tell her, but changes her mind. Suddenly, Iruka enters, telling Alan there's a problem and that Charlotte's younger sister, Natalia, is in danger and needs their help. We see Charlotte when she was at the palace, being mistreated by the residents who often mocked her. She meets her younger sister Natalia, who notices Charlotte's hands are full of wounds and bruises and gives her medicine to heal. Natalia asks if she has any free time today to read her a book, but Charlotte apologizes, saying she's too busy. Her sister understands but asks for something else, wanting to get closer as sisters, requesting Charlotte call her without any titles. Charlotte laughs and calls her by her first name. Charlotte wakes up in a strange place, wondering where she is, and realizes they're on a ship at sea. Alan and Iruka are sitting together, and Iruka tells him that Charlotte's younger sister is Natalia Evans, her half-sister, only 10 years old, and the legitimate heir to the Evans family. Alan asks about her relationship with Charlotte, and Iruka explains she was Charlotte's only supporter in the kingdom. Charlotte joins them, telling them she saw Natalia in her dream and asks Alan to understand her nature. They arrive at the island, and Alan mentions it's been 3 years since he was last there. Charlotte points to a large building, asking if it's the academy he attended, but Alan tells her it's just the student dormitory and that the whole island is the academy. Iruka informs them that Natalia is alone there and will explain everything when they return home. Hearing the name home, Alan gets tense. Iruka tells Charlotte that Alan hasn't been home since a severe fight with his father, but Alan says it's not important. Iruka reveals that the fight lasted 3 days and nights, causing damage to the island's other side, which became a tourist attraction. As they walk, they see people fighting, and Alan notices a stranger intervening, training, saying there's no need to worry. When the stranger approaches the fighters, they speak harshly, so he freezes them. Aruka calls out to him, and he teleports to them instantly, greeting Alan and thanking Charlotte for coming all this way. He introduces himself as Harvey Crawford, Alan and Aruka's father. Charlotte is shocked because he looks younger than her. They go to the mansion, and Harvey tells Alan he's happy he has a close friend like Charlotte. Alan wants to clarify that Charlotte isn't his girlfriend, but Aruka nudges him, signaling him to play along, knowing she told their father he had a friend to avoid questions. Alan tries to signal Charlotte to go along with the act, but despite his magical prowess, he struggles to wink. Charlotte understands and tells Harvey she is in a relationship with Alban. Harvey is delighted and asks if she's comfortable with him. She responds confidently, saying Alan treats her well and gets her whatever she wants without asking. Harvey tells her if she ever feels troubled, she can consider him her father and tell him anything. He'll help. Charlotte thanks him for his kindness. Harvey mentions marriage, making them both nervous and embarrassed. He assumes it's just a passing relationship, but Alan says they're not thinking about marriage yet. We learn that Harvey wants Alan to take over the Academy's leadership, but Alan refuses due to the heavy burden. Suddenly, a woman enters, and Charlotte thinks it's Alban's younger sister, but he clarifies it's his mother, Lieselot. Alan explains that his uncle wants him to run the Academy so he can spend more time with his mother. Alan gets straight to the point and asks Harvey about Charlotte's younger sister. Harvey informs him that she is currently studying at the Academy with them. It seems there's some turmoil within the Evans family, which is why they've sent Natalia here under the pretense of studying abroad while they resolve these issues. Harvey says that's not all. Recently, the competition between factions at the Academy has worsened. Alan asks about her relationship with Natalia, and the principal says it's faster for them to show what happened. We see Iroka remove a cover from a magic mirror, revealing several monsters surrounding Natalia, clearly with malicious intent. Alan decides to rescue her, but is shocked to find that Natalia is the gang's leader, treating them with great cruelty and disdain. Harvey then asks Alan to talk to her since he also caused many problems in the past, and they might understand each other. Charlotte is crying and asking Alan to act, but Harvey reassures her by showing in the mirror that Natalia pays her subordinates for their work and doesn't let them go unpaid. This reassures Charlotte that her sister is still good and hasn't changed. Harvey tells them that their academy respects student freedom, but in Natalia's case, she has gone too far, and they need to convince her to rein herself in and attend more classes. Alan decides to help and asks Charlotte if she wants to see her sister. After thinking for a while, Charlotte realizes that Natalia is her only good memory since she went to the mansion. If she doesn't act now, she'll regret it forever, so she decides to meet her with Alan. But it's late, and they decide to sleep. Alan has booked 2 rooms for them, but his mother tells him that she prepared rooms long ago, and they must sleep there. The next day, they wake up, and Alan uses a shape-shifting spell on Charlotte, adding glasses, revealing his taste in girls, noticed by Gajitsu and Lou. They stroll around the academy, seeing Natalia by the fountain. Alan approaches and calls her by name. Noticing her readiness for battle, she asks who he is. Alan introduces himself as a substitute teacher from the Crawford family. Her team informs her that this man once terrified the academy, defeating teachers and hundreds of students in a blink and crushing a mountain after a 3-day battle with the principal. Alan feels flattered and introduces Charlotte as his assistant. Alan says the principal asked him to guide some students and asks Natalia to treat him as a mentor, but she refuses, saying she doesn't need any mentors and walks away. Alan knew this would happen, keeping his composure. Charlotte starts crying, finally meeting her sister after a long time, attracting attention from the academy, thinking something is wrong. They attend a lecture where Natalia corrects the teacher's mistake, impressing Charlotte with her intelligence. Noticing this, Natalia asks how the Demon King's assistant doesn't know these lessons. Alan explains she's new and asks Natalia to tutor her during her free time. Natalia hesitates but agrees after Charlotte insists. They are by the fountain, and Charlotte thanks Natalia for teaching her lightning magic. Natalia asks why she wants to learn magic, and Charlotte replies that she wants to be strong to face anything. Suddenly, Lou and Gajitsu join them, playing with Charlotte, surprising everyone by seeing a water pig and Fenrir with her. Natalia asks who she is. Natalia learns she's a beast tamer, explaining the magical creature's affection. Charlotte leaves to get more food for Natalia, who then asks Alan if he was sent by the Evans family for her. Alan reassures her that he's not affiliated with them. Natalia reveals her hatred for her selfish family and her desire to learn magic to escape them. Alan broaches the topic of Natalia, angering her as she refuses to continue. A boy named Chris appears, competing with Natalia in everything, mocking her before leaving. Charlotte bumps into one of his followers, who insults her, angering Natalia, who hits him and wants to attack Chris. Alan stops her, saying it's wrong to fight in the cafeteria, frustrating her as he did nothing to help her. Alan laughs laughs mockingly, asking who said he wouldn't help them. Suddenly, he transports them to a strange barrier and defeats them one by one, preparing a large magic ball. Charlotte intervenes, destroying it, reminding him that violence is prohibited. Outside, Charlotte scolds them for their actions, enforcing the no-fighting rule, and they apologize, promising not to fight again. Alan talks to Natalia, saying if she wants to succeed and be strong, she must control the academy, surprising Natalia with his approach. After that, Aroka approaches them and informs Charlotte and Natalia that she is Alan's younger sister. When Natalia sees her, she says she must be a skilled sorceress since she's the sister of the Demon King. She explains that she is currently studying Alan's method for controlling the academy. Aroka asks Alan what Natalia is talking about, and Alan tells her that the most effective method is to challenge the enemy leader in a field where they excel and defeat them. He tells her that the only thing left is her match against Chris, and he explains that all she has to do is grab the flag from behind the Deus. The one who returns carrying the flag wins. Alan says he can teach her a secret trick, though it's nearly illegal. He says he has high hopes that she will use it well. Indeed, we see Chris frustrated because he lost to her, and we learn that he lost by a full 30 points. Natalia asks her friend why the Deus is closed off. Aroka tells her that it's the egg-laying season for the Deus Queen, which is why she's in a frenzy. Then we see Natalia's followers approaching her, each telling her what they did to the people who wronged them. We learn that Gajitsu and O are the ones training them. They notice that Natalia is hungry, so they head to get food, and Charlotte advises her to eat a lot of vegetables because they're important for her. But when they reach the cafeteria, Natalia doesn't want to eat the vegetables, yet she does so for Charlotte's sake. Aroka feels that their bond is strong, as if they were sisters by blood. Alan tells her that he hopes this will become true in reality. We return to Charlotte and Natalia, feeling shy, suggests that she teach Charlotte a new spell. When Charlotte agrees, they arrange to meet early in the morning before class. Her followers approach her, telling her they've completed their training and asking if they can join her next time. But Gajitsu appears and tells them it's still too early for them and has them continue their training. Alan carries Natalia to her room because she has fallen asleep from exhaustion. When he opens the door, he notices how diligent she is with her studies. He also notices a strange bag beside her. Her follower warns him not to approach the bag because it's dangerous and could attack him if he gets too close. Alan uses his magic to examine it and discovers that it's sealed with both magic and biometrics. A trap will be triggered if he tries to open it by force, making him wonder what's inside. While they sit in the room as Natalia sleeps, they see her hugging the bag as if it were a child. Charlotte tells Alan that it reminds her of the past, when she used to read to her, and she would fall asleep from exhaustion after listening. Charlotte feels that she must hide her true identity because Natalia has spoken to her about many things but never mentioned her family. She decides she must forget about it for now. But Lou says that they get along so well, there's no need for her to do that. Alan suggests she take her time before making that decision. Charlotte realizes he's right and decides to wait a bit longer before making her choice. The next day, we see Charlotte in her room, packing her things and saying goodbye to Alan before leaving. We see that Charlotte goes to train with Natalia on the spell she wanted to learn, and she successfully masters it after a short time. After training, Charlotte thanks Natalia for her help, and Natalia tells her that she has great talent and will be even stronger in the future. Natalia recalls happy memories before she came here and tells Charlotte she wants to show her something. We then see someone watching them from a distance, laughing maliciously. Natalia returns to her room and starts searching for the bag, but she can't find it. She tells Charlotte that it was the thing she wanted to show her. Suddenly, she finds a challenge note, realizing it's from Chris, who says that if she wants her bag back, she must come to the specified location. Natalia decides to go, saying that Chris will pay for what he did, but Charlotte tries to calm her down, telling her that fighting is wrong. Natalia asks her not to tell Alan what she's about to do, insisting on going alone. She leaves her room and sets off. Meanwhile, we see Alan with Natalia's followers, and they don't know where she or Charlotte are. Suddenly, one of Chris's friends arrives and informs them that Chris has summoned the forbidden Deus. Alan realizes that since it's egg-laying season, they are in danger. We then cut to Natalia and Chris at the Deus. Chris throws her bag into the pit, but assures her that he's placed a strong magical spell on it, so it won't be destroyed. He says that if she wants her bag, the first one to reach it will win, and then he starts running towards it. At that moment, Alan learns from Chris's friend that Chris used to be the best student in the academy. But one day, Natalia appeared and surpassed him in all the areas where he excelled, so he was determined to defeat her at any cost. Alan understands the situation and says he'll go alone to save them. Before leaving, he asks Gajitsu to inform his uncle because he doesn't know what might happen. We return to Natalia and Chris, where Natalia manages to defeat Chris again and retrieves her bag. But suddenly, they hear a strange sound, and when they look, they see the Deus Queen, a a chimera. Upon seeing it, Chris immediately runs, with Natalia following close behind. They realize they must hide far away from it. Natalia tells him that they need to deal with it, knowing that chimeras flee quickly when they hear a loud noise nearby. Suddenly, the chimera appears and strikes them both, throwing them far away. It's about to crush Natalia and kill her. But suddenly, Charlotte appears, using her magic to wound the creature, forcing it to flee. They sit together, and Charlotte heals Natalia's injuries. However, she tells her that they can't leave until Chris wakes up from his coma. Natalia asks if the spell Charlotte used on the chimera was the same one she had taught her. Charlotte confirms, saying it's indeed the spell she learned from her. However, Natalia becomes upset, asking Charlotte why she came to execute it, as she could have gotten hurt. Charlotte explains that no matter how strong her magic is, she's still a child and wouldn't have been able to handle the situation on her own. Natalia asks why Charlotte cares so much about her, as Charlotte considers revealing the truth that she's her sister. But Natalia apologizes for the trouble she caused, explaining that she had to get her bag back. When Charlotte asks what was inside the bag, Natalia asks her about the younger sister she had mentioned before. Meanwhile, we see Alan rushing through the Demus, thinking to himself nervously that there's a creature called Salamander there, and it must never wake up. Natalia tells Charlotte that she also has an older sister, and she asks her if Alan has told her about the incident that happened in the Evans family. She explains that her sister didn't do anything, and she couldn't even harm an insect. She's sure it was the prince's corrupt act that framed her. Charlotte asks if she hates her sister, but Natalia says she hates her family and herself for not being able to save her sister. She continues by saying that her sister left everything behind when she disappeared, and this bag is all that's left. Because of it, she can use magic to sense that her sister is still alive, but somewhere unknown to her. Charlotte learns that Natalia used a spell to track lost objects in order to do this. Natalia adds that she wants to personally take down the one who captured her sister, and she tells Charlotte that strong energy barriers block her every time. She's convinced that the one who imprisoned her sister is the same person causing these obstacles, and says she'll find and kill him one day, hinting at Alan. Charlotte reassures her that she'll find her sister soon, but Natalia seems surprised, saying she feels like she's known her for a long time, even though they've only recently met. Suddenly, Chris wakes up, crying and apologizing to Natalia, saying he didn't know she had such a tragic past. But suddenly, a salamander appears before them, and Charlotte tells Natalia and Chris to run and summon Alan, while she distracts the creature. Natalia hesitates, not wanting to leave Charlotte behind, but Charlotte reassures her that she'll be fine. Suddenly, the creature attacks Charlotte, knocking her down and breaking the invisibility spell she had on. Natalia then realizes that Charlotte is her sister. Just as the creature is about to kill Charlotte, Alan appears, furious at the creature for hurting her, and unleashes such a powerful spell that the entire island shakes. But unexpectedly, he starts playing with the salamander, and we learn this happened because he's been taking care of it since it was a small egg. They head outside the ruins, and Alan wakes Charlotte from her unconsciousness to speak with Natalia. Charlotte apologizes to Natalia, saying she's caused her a lot of trouble, but Natalia isn't concerned about that. She pulls out the book Charlotte was reading to her before she slept and asks her to read it again. They both end up crying in each other's arms. Later, we see Charlotte, Natalia, and Alan together, and Natalia learns that Alan is close to Charlotte. She realizes he's the one who's been keeping her from seeing Charlotte and starts chasing him around. They then head to the palace, where Alan and Charlotte sit together having tea. But something is bothering Alan. He wonders why Charlotte asked him about his feelings for her that night. Charlotte, too, is thinking about the same thing, and they both start speaking at the same time. Suddenly, Mayasha enters, welcoming them since it's been a while since she's seen them, and hands them a package before leaving. When they open the package, they find a summoning circle, and Alan remembers something dangerous might come out of it. He asks Charlotte to step back. But what emerges from the summoning portal is Natalia, who just wanted to visit Charlotte. However, she and Alan start bickering, as they're not on good terms, and they seem ready to fight. But suddenly, Dorothy bursts through the door, hitting Alan, and hands them the romantic novel she's been writing, asking for help to finish its second part. Alan, though, is reluctant to help because the last time he did, their palace walls were broken. In the middle of the night, Charlotte dreams of being punished by her mother for no reason and thrown into a basement. But Alan appeared like a hero and saved her from the situation. Charlotte wakes up and goes to Alan's room, telling him she can't sleep and asking if she can stay with him. Alan agrees and takes her with him to drink hot cocoa as they watch the stars. The moment is filled with romance, so much so that it would make anyone single want to die, honestly. Meanwhile, we shift to the prince of the kingdom of Neros, who has learned from his informant that they found Charlotte's location. He orders her capture immediately, then laughs evilly, telling Charlotte to wait for him.